So we'll set that aside, and ladies and gentlemen, as promised, the movie art of Syd Mead. Heavy Lover Cats, thank you very much. Evil Overcats. So, for those who don't know, Syd Mead is one of the masters of cinema design. So, to give you an idea, let's go through and check it out. You might recognize this vehicle from Blade Runner. So here's some of the movies he worked on. Star Trek The Motion Picture, Strange Days, The Core, Topeka, Aliens, 2010, The Year We Made Contact, Belittled, Blade Runner, Ectopia, Escort, Elysium, The Jetsons, that movie never came out, Johnny Mnemonic, Lunar Scout Commandos, Tron, Grand Odyssey, Mission Impossible 3, Mission to Mars, Short Circuit, The Sound of Thunder, Schizoid, Sandblast, Forbidden Planet, the remake that never happened, Yamato, Blade Runner 2049. So there you go. Syd. So, Star Trek The Motion Picture. The commission here was essentially, design a robot's acid trip. And he certainly did that. So if you ever watched the V'ger, or if you watch Star Trek The Motion Picture, they have the V'ger ship, where it's just it was a weird kaleidoscope of stuff. They had to try and show an alien vessel of some sort, and so they couldn't quite figure out how to do it, and Syd came up with this, and it was beautiful. So, freaking amazing. But anyways, so pretty cool. Most of this is actually done with gouache. So the same stuff I was just using to paint is actually what he uses for his work. So, by the way, the link for this book, if you decide you want this book, it's actually on my channel page. You'll actually see where I have supplies listed. You will see the artist Syd Mead in there. And that's this book. It just came out. So now that was Star Trek The Motion Picture, by the way. So he designed the V'ger spacecraft, which of course we'll discover later on in the movie is actually Voyager, just with a shitload of stuff built around it. Now this movie was called Strange Days. This is kind of cool. So this movie was originally conceptualized in 1985. It was by James Cameron. So when he finished up working on the first Terminator movie, he came up with this concept for Strange Days, and then he wrote the script for it. He never actually got around to directing it, so Catherine Bigelow ended up directing it. But anyways, this is a pretty fucked up story. The concept is they have these devices called mind grabbers that you would actually put on your skull, you'd put on your head, and you could actually play back people's feelings. So they had these tapes that you could people could actually wear these and record their feelings, and you could also play them back. So the idea is I would go to the zoo, or I would watch my child being born, or I would do something that was kind of a euphoric event, and you would wear one of these things and record that event, and now you can give that tape to your friends and family so they can experience the same joy you felt. And that was what it was designed for. And people would actually, there was a kind of a black market formed with people dealing in tapes of people's emotions, and it was almost addicting because people could just, if you have a really bad day or whatever, you could just go play somebody else's really good day, and suddenly things felt better for you. The problem is they ran across these tapes on the black market of this one guy who was killing people, and the way he was killing people was super fucked up. So he would wear one of these headpieces, and he would put, the way it worked is you could actually transmit your feelings also live to somebody. So essentially, the way it's kind of described in the movie is somebody would be wearing one of these headsets. He'd be wearing the broadcaster, and somebody else would be wearing the receiver. And then the person wearing the broadcaster would do something, say, making love. The person wearing the receiver would feel it. So they would experience everything that the person wearing the broadcast felt and experienced, and they would feel it in real time. And they could also record it, and then people could play back the recording later and experience that same feeling. So, kind of neat, kind of trippy, a little weird. But this guy who was killing people was actually raping women and then killing them. and he was doing it. He was wearing the broadcaster. He would put the receiver on the victim. So this guy would actually rape somebody, and in the process of raping them, they would feel his euphoria at violating them and then killing them. And so it was just this whole mindfuck story, and really vicious. It was an amazing movie, but it was twisted. So it's called Strange Days. And like I said, it was by James Cameron. Catherine Bigelow directed it. It actually came out, I want to say, in 1995. But it was originally conceived in 1985, 1986 timeframe. So by James Cameron. So, but anyways, then there's the movie The Core, which was supposed to be a journey to the center of the earth kind of story. And so, what's funny is there's a little note in here called "We'll rewrite it, Syd." And what that is Syd Mead, when he was designing and reading the script, he's like, you guys have a fundamental flaw in your story. You have this thing that just drills and leaves a hole. When you're drilling through rock, that rock has to go somewhere. It has to go behind the vehicle somehow. And so the way they had everything designed, it didn't work. And he's like, you're violating physics. However, if we had like a laser or something, maybe we could have like some kind of a molten, you could actually liquefy the rock and then spew it out behind you, almost like a worm. A worm essentially eats something, it passes through it, and it shits it out the back end. So that's really what this was. This was essentially a giant earthworm, only it had a laser. And but they ended up rewriting the script to accommodate for the fact that Syd Mead was pointing out all these violations of the laws of physics that were in the script. And that actually let him design a better, more realistic vehicle, which is kind of cool. So it looks cool. The movie was crap, but it was certainly kind of interesting. So there was some fun stuff in it. Don't expect great cinema watching this movie, but it was well designed. The equipment and stuff in it looked beautiful. The settings and stuff, the sets, and even some of the acting was pretty solid. But yeah, it just, there was some, stupid issues with the story. So, but anyways, kind of cool. And I love how he always, like, Syd Mead was one of the guys who started throwing people in, just doing random things. Like, you'd have people working, like, he would design the spaceship and he'd draw somebody with a hammer next to the spaceship. And the reason is he wanted to show the scale of what he was drawing and what he was designing based on a human. And so you always see in his paintings, you would see somebody next to it. And so that's something he kind of, I want to say he innovated it. He's the first one I see. Miriam Mock says, that's so messed up. Froggy toes. Oh, the froggy toes for the headpiece? Yeah. What the hell? Yeah, the Strange Days, by the way. That was that movie we were just talking about. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. It was a good movie, though. It was twisted. And this is the inside of the core of the drilling machine. And you can kind of see there's not a lot of room to move around. It was very designed. The set was very designed to be very claustrophobic. Weird movie. Yeah, it was weird. It was twisted. And the guy who discovers the tapes, by the way, is a retired cop. So he's kind of dealing in black tapes on his own. So this is something a project called Topeka. So I don't know anything about Topeka. DIY creative ingenuity, relatively new territory for me, whose background in industrial design had the usual elements of ergonomics and man-machine interface. Yeah, I have no clue anything about this movie, so I don't know. Looks kind of cool, though. This I thought was kind of neat. So imagine like a classic like Pontiac or even like a Hewlett-Packard Roadster, and then take it a couple hundred years into the future. And so that's what he's got here. It looks pretty badass. And then the motorcycles, of course, look cool. And it's this rimless hub thing going on. What's the year this was made? Is there anything on the year? I see nothing on the year. Oh, well. I'll have to read up on that. But I just got this book, by the way, so I haven't finished reading the whole thing. But some of the stuff I already knew about. Like, I watched Strange Days. I watched The Core. I watch a lot of movies. Kind of in what I do in the movie industry, you have to always watch movies. That's why I buy these books. I have several of Syd Mead's books. This one kind of recaps some of the stuff that's in earlier books, but I really love the way they did it in this. So, So they actually describe this as a hot rod steampunk junkyard assemblage of what seems to be a catalog of retro auto accessories. Loads this slouching, low-riding saloon with all preening hostility of a motorcycle gangbanger determined to arrive in sultanesque style. So, sorry, they were using gangbangers and thugs as opposed to somebody who has a very interesting hobby. Let's see. Very cool designs, though. Like I said, I know nothing about Topeka. There's a cool dog design here, so you can kind of see where he designed the skull. And he also designed all the pieces here are designed in triangles, so that as it moves, you can actually see how its body is designed to function, which is kind of cool. And again, he throws people in to show scale, so this is a train. There's the retro car there again. And then the city. So this is actually just a little footnote pointing out that a lot of times Syd Mead would do a design like this, and then this design would end up in architecture. So there's actually a note here that since the turn of the millennium, architects have increasingly created forms much like this for high-profile projects, so that in retrospect, Mead's vision is not only futuristic, but prophetic as well. Examples found in Malaysia, Turkey, China, and Korea, where entrepreneurs have pushed the envelope to new heights. This gigantic megastructure with splayed legs and flaring pantaloon-like shapes would not be out of style in the skyline of Dubai. And they're right. A lot of this stuff actually, it looks like people are watching Syd Mead's designs and saying, I need a building like that, which is kind of cool. So there you go, Lee. Mind flying to Brazers. What is Brazers? What's Brazers? So this is kind of cool. So the top of the building actually has a wind turbine in it, which I actually like this because there is a building, I want to say in Taiwan, that actually has turbines built into it. So when the wind hits the building, it actually is, it's two towers, and when the wind is forced between them, which is how it's designed, it actually turns turbines that actually power the building. So it's kind of cool. Google it. Okay, who wants to corrupt Lee a bit? I'm pretty sure this is something nasty, so we'll not Twitch violate, and I'll try to remember to Google it later. I probably won't, but thanks, guys. So here's one of those dogs again. It's I like how he's done this. So he's actually, it now almost has like a waistband around the torso of the dog, which looks pretty cool. So this actually looks pretty badass. So this is something like when I have to design a mecha or design a robot or something, I would actually go back and check this out. Oh man, you just cracked me up now laughing so much. Jesus Christ. I got a feeling I'm missing something. Like pretty major. So Aliens. So one of my favorite movies of all time, by the way, especially from a design aspect. So you had two very distinct designs in this movie. Of course, you had the human design, which is what Syd Mead did. So this is the Sulaco. But he also had the design that H.R. Giger did for the aliens, and as well as the engineers and the alien technology and stuff, which was carried over from the first movie. So, but you can kind of see, so here's his initial pencil sketch of the ship, and then he goes into this breakdown, and this is really critical if you're doing industrial design, is a lot of times they want to see stuff in perspective, and the reason is the person who has to model it and build it, whether it's CG or analog, they have to get an understanding of how it fits in a three-dimensional space. And so a lot of times artists will actually do a perspective drawing like this. And so this is what his job was, is Syd would design it and then a model maker would go and build it. So you can kind of see where he breaks down the major shapes. He's got the perspective and stuff here. And then there's this one, which essentially he probably takes a piece of tracing paper, vellum, and he'll put it over it and then lightbox it and redraw it. So you guys have seen me do that a couple of times on stream. And then he ends up redrawing it. And then this is all just ink and Copic marker. So he was using ad markers probably. And then a lot of gouache. So, but anyways, so this is the Sulaco. This is the ship with the Marines on it that goes out to check out the alien threat, so to speak, to the colony. To go check out the colony they lost contact with. So here it is in all its gouache painted glory. So again, same stuff I was just using on that color, or that cover that I did. And so here you see him doing this is called elevations. So he does a breakdown. He actually starts talking about which of the the various sections of the ship, and he actually tries to break down like scale and how big he interprets it and how big he thinks it's got to be. And I guess James Cameron actually described it as it would just be a shitload of forward-facing antennas. So lots of sensors, lots of ways to detect things or whatnot. So just wanted it to look cool. So this is actually the first drawings of the Sulaco before he met with James Cameron. So these are actually, so you can see how this is how it started out, and then later on it became this. So it's kind of neat to actually see. I would understand if your kid would ask, what is Brazers? The dad, no. Not so much anymore. Laugh of the week. Now I'm afraid to Google it. Dude, I'm busy. I don't have time to figure out what all this other shit is. Remember, I worked for Playboy, so I worked on the very edge of the porn industry. I just stayed out of it. I actually refused to draw genitals, and that kept me out of their porn category. So I just did classic pinup art, which, by the way, we're going to be doing some. I've got some nice cheesecakey pinup art stuff that we're going to be working on. I'm going to do, my first one is actually going to be a study of a Gil Evgren painting. So, actually I've got it printed out over here, actually. And it's big, too. So here's the full size. There's the full-size printout. It's actually just taped to a canvas of what I'm going to be recreating. So I'm going to recreate this painting it's kind of a master study. So it's common for artists to actually copy other artists' work to figure out how they do it. So I want to do some classic pinup stuff, and I really like Gil Evgren's style. So I'm going to copy some Gil Evgren paintings, and we're going to do that on stream. So that's one of the projects I've got working on coming up in the near future. So here you can kind of see the inside of the Sulaco, and again, he does these in perspective drawings, so you can see these are pretty much just generic one perspective shots, where you can actually see how the troops get up, how they work around, the kitchen, things like that, everything, the arrangement. So he's actually doing the set design here, and he's setting the style for the people who have to build the set for the movie. So beautiful, beautiful concept art. I love this. This is also these are the sleep chambers, the cryo chambers that everybody sleeps in. And I'll try to rock it through this a little faster so we're not, just me reading a book to you. But so you can kind of see he designed a shower here. How does the shower work within the room? You've actually got let me move this so the glare is not in there so much. But you can actually see the functioning of the hinges and stuff, of how this opens and closes to let the people in and out, and how the whole thing actually pivots upright to let them out. More elevations of the Sulaco, so he shows like a cutaway of the module and how it's stored and where the barracks are and like the squad bay and stuff like that. Pistachorino says, going to bed, have a good one, and thanks for the stream. Glad you had a good time in Sweden. I'm glad I had a good time in Sweden too. Thank you very much for the well wishes. Different pleasures, porn and classic pinups, each on its own level. I'm a huge fan of classic pinups, so I'm also a huge fan of awesome industrial design. So it's trying to balance those in my own art is sometimes a pain in the ass. So someday, what you probably will expect to see from me is I will probably do a classic pinup in the Gil Evgren style of a cyborg, which is something I've always wanted to do. I would totally love to do something that looked like it was painted in the 50s or even the 40s. Could be on a nose cone art, but it's like a cyborg with like cybernetic arms and stuff like that. So imagine that dog with all the gears and things like that. Only it's a beautiful woman. So I think something like that would be pretty badass. So I like to mix the various influences that I have. Syd Mead is one of those influences. Gil Evgren is another one. So if I can somehow find a hybrid there, that's why I'm going to do a practice run doing those master studies of Gil Evgren's artwork. So this here is 2010, the year we made contact. So this was actually a really cool movie. This thing looked amazing. So, and of course, this was, I believe, Stanley Kubrick. Oh, it's Peter Hyam, excuse me. Stanley Kubrick did the 2001 Space Odyssey. So, but again, you can see he does this gouache painting technique. Me too. Loomis has that old classic style to his women. So sweet. And so again with the gouache painting. So, and then this is just Copic marker, by the way. So, well, this particular marker is actually called Ad Markers. They don't really make this anymore. Ad Marker was bought by Prisma, so now it's called Prisma markers. But so yeah, Prisma markers. So you can see he does the rough sketch, the rough doodles and whatnot, and then he just kind of eventually ends up with this refined one. Most of the time, again, these are actually done on vellum. So there's another amazing designer. His name's Doug Chiang. He's actually the creative director on Star Wars right now. He's over at Lucasfilm. So he worked on Episode 1 and 2 with George Lucas, and then left Lucasfilm to go work on his own projects. And then when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they actually hired him back to work on the new film. So he's kind of running the visual look of Star Wars right now. But his stuff is also mind-blowingly gorgeous. I wish they would put out a book of just his stuff. I don't see that anytime in the near future, since most of his stuff is Star Wars, and they just love these books. So, so my Star Wars, Art of Star Wars, and again, I can just come right in here. Very first picture you see Doug Chiang, and you also see it is in fact Copic, or not Copic, but it's gouache. So it's just kind of, and then of course his designs with pen and ink, doing the Copic marker thing. So well, again, he's actually using Prisma markers here and Ad Markers, but yeah, gouache marker. So, but this is Doug Chiang. You can clearly see the influence. You said Ad Markers, yeah, AD markers. But this, you can clearly see the influence in this artist of this artist. So they're almost drawing identical. So Doug Chiang is also studying industrial design. I used to have some Ad Markers. I'd pull them out and show you, but I threw them all away because they were dry. Again, so what they would do is they would actually do a drawing in Ad Marker. So Copics, essentially, so the original Copic markers, we'll call them. And so he would do it that way, and then he would actually do a gouache painting over that. So pretty much exactly what I just did to that Wolverine is what they did here. They went a little bit further than I did on the Wolverine. Like, I wanted the Wolverine to look pen and ink drawn with just some color. I didn't want to overboard it. These were actually intended to look like paintings. And the idea is you want to try and visually show what's going to be shown on screen. So you try to get it as realistic as possible without going, too crazy, but you also have that limitation of time. So you don't have time to sit here and do a full-blown photorealistic painting. So that's why they use gouache. They crank it out over a pen and ink drawing. And that's really kind of how... yes, they do and sell those. Okay, cool. I know that they still have them, but I think they're actually Prisma markers now. I think Prisma actually bought the company out a few years ago. If you're buying them, I believe you're buying old ones that have just never been used. Or they're remaking them again, because I know they canceled them at one point. But, the audience always wins. Eventually people bitch enough and they get them back. So, and you can kind of see here, he colored this in one color gray and then actually used what's called a blender. He went back, which is just a clear marker. It's essentially all paint, all colors are usually done, any medium is usually you have pigment and then you have a binder. So in the case of watercolor, you're looking at, you have the powdered pigments that you're used to seeing. Those are essentially mixed in with what's called gum arabic. And so that's actually what makes your watercolor medium. With gouache, I forgot what it's called, but it's something else. It might be gum arabic, I don't know. But so with gouache, it's a slightly different medium. It's watercolor, but it's more opaque. But then acrylic, you have the exact same pigments that would end up in watercolor. They take that exact same pigment and now they mix it with what's called polymer emulsion. And that's essentially liquid plastic. So acrylic is just that. It's acrylic plastic. So just like acrylic windows, acrylic panes, acrylic panels, resin, that's all acrylic. That's all paint is you're painting with plastic with acrylic paints. And then same pigments mixed with linseed oil, walnut oil, things like that, you actually get oil paints. So it's pretty much color and binder. And so what a Copic blender, or what a blender pen is it's essentially the marker pen with no pigment in it. It's just the binder. So it's just, these are alcohol-based pens, so it's just the alcohol base, the liquid that they use for the binder in a pen form, and you can actually use that to essentially erase and cause highlights, which is kind of a neat thing. Allows you to get depth and shadow in your paintings, in your drawings. So, by the way, we're looking at Blade Runner designs now. So these are all the vehicles, the police vehicles and stuff from Blade Runner. And I think a good chunk of the majority of the book, or at least the largest single section, is actually the Blade Runner stuff. And it's just because this is a project that was just so visually iconic. Blade Runner is pretty much the significant influencing movie, the most influential movie of all time design-wise. Most designers point to it as far as what they're trying to design for when they talk about the future and stuff. Whereas with Star Wars, most people say, oh yeah, Star Wars was the first kind of to make spaceships kind of believable, so to speak. But the problem is they still focus kind of like as if they're in atmosphere. So X-Wing fighters, they fly like they're fighters. They fly like they actually have drag and lift and things like that. So they bank and do things like that, and they've got boosters in the back. Think of Babylon 5. There was a TV show called Babylon 5 created by J. Michael Straczynski. Was kind of cool because they had these things called Star Furies. And it was these spaceships that would come flying out at you, and then suddenly, because in space there's no friction, there's no drag, these things would actually just bank and twist and just start unloading. It was such a cool visual to see that, because there's no friction. There's no reason these things couldn't just spin on a dime and start unloading a bunch of weapons fire. And they did that in that movie, so it was really cool. So you can kind of see the progression of influence in the various movies and TV shows and things. So in the case of Blade Runner, this is the one where when automobile designers or building architects and things like that are talking about how they're trying to design for the future, most of them actually cite Blade Runner as the movie that they're trying to design for. Just Neo gets his shit pushed in. Auto designers kind of made them keeping making it because they said feels better and looks better when designing new cars. The industry has such power. Its weight must have weighed something in on it, probably. Most likely. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. So, but again, you can see gouache painting, and then the pen and ink stuff is just kind of they just inverted it and set it to screen. But, Photoshop trick to make it look cool for the book. But these were done in black and white. But I love these kind of gouache paintings. So these things are awesome. And again, more gouache painting, more of the sketches of vehicles. And you can see how he just goes through these various iterations. So the idea of design is you see a lot of people, and keep in mind that it kind of goes with one of the things I try to tell people is when you're watching success, so when you see somebody who does something for a living, you watch them go in and, even on Twitch, I do a lot of prep work before I do images on Twitch. So very rarely do I sit down and I have something absolutely from scratch, from a blank surface, that I crank it out. Even Bob Ross, when Bob Ross does his paintings, the thing a lot of people don't realize is when Bob Ross is painting something, he says, I think I'll put a tree here. I think I'll put a mountain here. I think I'm going to put a happy little cloud here. He's already done it. There's a painting sitting just out of camera range that the camera's not seeing, that the audience doesn't see. That's his painting. He already painted the picture. He's now recreating. So he painted it there. And then when he does the books, what he does is he'll recreate that painting yet again, a third time. So every painting you've ever seen on a Bob Ross TV show has actually been painted 3 separate times. He painted the first one, which is essentially the prototype, and when he paints that, he says, I like this is the way it's got to look. This is the one we're going to use for today's episode. He then puts that on an easel just outside of the shot of the camera, and then he recreates it. But as he's doing it, he's kind of pretending it's off the top of his head, because what he's teaching people is that you work off the top of your head. So granted, he did that originally on that first painting, but he probably didn't do it in 30 minutes. So he actually sat there and thought about it and was like, what do I do? I don't know. Maybe I'll do this. I don't know. And then once he nailed it and figured out what he wants to do, then he gets to pretend that he's, you know, a mad genius, and he is a mad genius, but that he could do it in just 30 minutes. So he essentially practices, and then he gets up there and he does it. And that's one of the things that's infuriating, is people look at somebody like Bob Ross, who just sits down and in 30 minutes, boom, masterpiece. And they see that, and they actually, a lot of times they're like, well, shit, he makes it look so easy. They don't realize he did the painting already. So same thing here with Syd Mead, is people look at these paintings and they look at these designs and they're like, God damn, he just cranked it out. But what they don't see is the 42 other sketches and designs that led to this design. So it's the issue with success is everybody always sees the result of success. They don't see the work that led into it. So a lot of times, like I said, even when I'm on Twitch and I'm working on something, you know, when I did this Wolverine cover originally, if you guys remember, I had a little sheet of paper and it had doodles on it. I actually sketched out what this cover should look like in kind of thumbnail sketches like this before I did it on stream. So when I decided I was going to do this, I worked it all out, and then I did it on stream. So I don't want to say it's cheating, because it's just the workflow, it's the process. But, you know, don't be discouraged if you see an artist just crank out a picture and hit it out of the park, and then you're sitting there like, well, shit, he makes it look so easy. He did a lot of work building up to that. He didn't just sit down and go, ha-ha, masterpiece. He actually worked hard to get to a point where he could pretend to go, ha-ha, masterpiece. So keep that in mind. Again, the hardest part of success is you don't see the work that goes into it. You just see something just get shit and it looks beautiful. Let me scroll up here really fast. Nightbot, I was giving useful info to Lee. You stupid thing. Don't be so jelly. Don't be jelly. I have a XXL Markle. Just shove it up yours. Lovely. Neil says that black with the car looks like Demolition Man cars. Yes, it does. It actually looks very much like the Demolition Man cars. By the way, again, among movie designers, Blade Runner is one of the most influential. So if you think to the Colin Farrell Total Recall movie, I think it was, and even the movie Steven Spielberg, oh god, it was based on a Philip K. Dick book, had Tom Cruise, Minority Report. If you think of Minority Report, again, a lot of that visual design looks like this. It was all leads back to the work Syd Mead did on Blade Runner, so it was very influential. Supermanopus says pretender. So, and Maria Mundo says, yeah, gotta love Bean. Why are you drawing the same thing over and over and over? Well, see, that's the funny thing is you draw the same thing over and over again. Like, he draws spaceships and cars a lot. That's why his spaceship and cars look amazing. If somebody just draws once and hammers it out of the park, you know, they're not going to hammer it out of the park. They're not going to hit it out of the park. They're not going to do that good of a job. They might do a pretty good job. I did that once. I think we were doing anatomical studies, and somebody came in and kind of heckled and said, can you draw vehicles or you just draw humans? I don't know. And I drew a tank. And actually, Jonas was laughing about that because he remembered that stream when he pulled that out. But that was in the black box. So, dude, check out my car draw. Can I drop a link? No, I have a Discord channel. You can post your artwork in the Discord channel, and we'll check it out there. So follow Nightbot. So it says share your art in the link just above you. You can actually upload all your art to Discord. And then here again, another gouache painting. So this is actually Decker in his car, and so you can see the hover vehicle thing. Kind of badass looking. He was drawing like the ambulance, the bikes, and he drew everything. He designed every aspect. He designed like how the sidewalks looked. He designed how the cords looked, or how the food, the plates. He would design how the cars looked. He would design the skyline. So, I mean, he went balls out on this movie. So here you go. Kind of this super claustrophobic kind of society. Too many people in too small of a space. And even better yet is it looks almost deserted. So there's a lot of people, but it looks like it houses a lot more than are actually there. And that's covered because if you listen in the background of the movie, you keep hearing them say, go to the off-world colonies. So at this point in human society, people are actually living off-world. And so you have this thing where the people who are left are the poor schleps who couldn't afford to go. Or, for whatever, for medical reasons or whatever, they couldn't actually live in the off-world colonies. And so you end up with kind of the refuse of society is left over. And so here you can kind of see all the rough scribbles and stuff that lead to these beautiful pieces. So, and again, here he is. He's designing the street side cafe. So he's showing you how the benches come out, how the people sit down, what is the scale, where does the cook stand. And so he designs what it looks like. So this is a elevation view. He shows you from the side, and then he draws you one from the front. Neil, that's the majority of people think about artists and get so fascinated about drawings because they think that piece just jumped out like a rabbit, and it's done just like that, just like on the go. When actually they never see the amount of thumbnails and brainstorming to predict the idea that ends up being the one chosen and the final one to be rendered. Yes, and that's critical, and that's one of the things I try to teach people when I teach art is, it's practice. Everybody says, how do you get good at it? You got to keep doing it. It's, I would draw sometimes, I think I drew about 10 or 15 thumbnails of that Wolverine cover before I did the Wolverine cover. Now I've got friends who will sit down and they will just write on the cover. They'll just sit there and kind of do masses and shapes and be okay, and then they'll just crank it out. And, they don't really have a concern for, they're interested in the paycheck. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're amazing artists and they have amazing skills and stuff, but a lot of times they're drawing the same picture over and over and over again. And it's just because they can draw that fast and somebody's paying them to do it. I try not to do that. Sometimes I'm kind of forced to because I'll draw a picture and somebody's like, I really like that, do that. So, Superman Post says, and I'm from the moment and wants to share in the moment. No worries. How do you get to Carnegie Hall scenario? Yes, Maria Luna, exactly. A great man once taught me that a good drawing needs to be well thought out even before the first throw, composition-wise, and that involves the big picture to the small detail. Yes, exactly. And that's what all of this is there's lots of little details here. So these are scribbles of design stuff. You can actually see, like here, the break up in the windows, you can actually see in this design here. So he kind of penciled and roughed it out. Here's two sketches to lead to this. And then this painting's actually done twice. So, he's actually recreated his own artwork repeatedly to fine-tune it. And that's why the one that's final looks so beautiful, because he's worked out all the bugs to get to there. So this is kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to show this book and why it's so important. Is this is an amazing book. So by the way, just for those who are wondering, this is the movie art of Syd Mead, visual futurist. Again, if you check on my channel page, you'll actually see this link under supplies. It's an Amazon link. It just came out this week. So, but anyways, I love this book because most of the time you get books that's just pages and pages of text and a few pictures. And this thing, as you can see, is just, this is made for an asshole like me. It's just lots of artwork, a little bit of text describing what went into the design elements here. So this is the strip club scene. So pretty cool. I love, so this is actually the opening sequence of the original script that wasn't used. So you also get to see all the stuff that they threw away from the movie that they didn't use. I just love these things. So awesome. So I'll speed it up a little bit. Oh, this is the machine that tests people's tests whether or not they're replicants. So it's kind of cool. So, and again, you can see here's one design, here's another design, here's another design, here's another design. So you can see he went through like 4 iterations, and the final version actually is kind of a mix of these two. So this is actually for the exotic club dancer. So they originally gave her this mask. So, Ectopia. So I have no clue what this is. Mead imagined an ideal village with the services buried underneath as the prime setting for a family-friendly TV series set in the near future. As with many TV shows, this one unfortunately was never given a green light. By the way, just to let you guys know, I have worked on 15 TV shows that have never been given the green light. So most shows just don't get the green light. One of them was my own show. I created it. So we got to the pilot stage, and we were in production of the pilot when the network finally said, no, we're going to go with this other, and they ended up swapping out my project for Mad TV, which was used on Cartoon Network. It was the lead-in for Adult Swim. So I was doing a cartoon for Cartoon Network. Killed that fucking bug. Good night. Okay. Sorry, he was bugging me earlier and was dumb enough to fly in my path. So Escort, Kinder Trap, we were just talking about Kindergoth. Mead contributed sketches for design of a science fiction movie about a mother who uses children and their genetic material to manufacture an army of robotic clones. So vehicle designs, again, these are kind of cool, kind of hovery looking things. I always love the concept of the hovering. Now, by the way, Elysium looked amazing. So I don't know about the story. I didn't actually get to watch the whole movie, but I saw segments of it muted, and it looked gorgeous. Neil says, ultimately, art is an idea, and such ideas need to be thought out. Best way to come out with the best impact to the viewer. Yes, it's refinement. And again, you know, when people see success, again, they only see the final execution. They see what comes out that's beautiful. I don't really show you guys the nitty gritty and the dirt, kind of the making sausage, as we call it, of art sometimes. And the reason is because it's boring as shit. Nobody would watch that. I would have 2 viewers, and they would probably both be heckling me if you guys saw like this stupid little, you know, thumbnail. Oh, that's not working. That's not working. That's not working. That's not working. 30 thumbnails later. Here, something I want to go for. And one of these days, I'll actually do my live. I'll do my Wacom demo for you guys live on the Mac. We'll do it in Photoshop, and you will see the painting I did of Emily as a knight petting a dragon. So I did that Best of Friends painting for TwitchCon Gallery last year. I saved most of the layers for that, and I saved all the processes and all the thumbnail sketches leading into it. It was a pure digital picture, start to finish. And so I was very fortunate that I was smart enough to save all my layers as opposed to throwing them away or flattening them like I usually do. But what's cool about that is you can actually see the creative process all the way through, start to finish. So there's a little gap with the dragon itself and the knight where I flattened all the layers. But other than that, I can still show you the full process. And we'll probably do that one of these days. I may do it for like a Wednesday art class. It's the same demo I did in Sweden last week. So, again, you kind of see this. It almost looks like Star Trek kind of, you know, design, the corridor design. And then this is kind of cool because this is the first time I just got this book. It's kind of cool. So it's his pen and ink stuff, but this is the first time I've ever seen him use Photoshop. So I can actually look at this and I know instantly he's digitally coloring his inks, his pen and ink stuff. So he's doing the pen and ink stuff, scans it in, and now he's just tweaking it with some color. So he's using the gradient tool. So same thing here. This was fully rendered in marker and pen and ink, so Copic, add marker, whatever. And then he went in Photoshop and colored it. So it's kind of cool. And I just love these single point perspective designs that he does. They're beautiful. And then here's all the landscapes within the space station, which is cool because if you remember, a space station has to spin to generate gravity. So everything's going to be on the inside track, the inside of the wheel, so to speak, and that's kind of where all the gravity is. So so everything rests kind of on the inside rim as it spins, and I love that because if anything's on the outside rim, it's going to get shot off. It goes the wrong way. So, The Jetsons. So this was a movie that was never made, or TV show, excuse me. So it was supposed to mix live action and animation. So this was his attempt to actually create what a real version of the Jetsons vehicle would look like. So it's kind of cool. It actually looks kind of trippy. and very similar, very reminiscent of the original Jetsons video, or Jetsons cartoon vehicles and stuff, but it's just really cool. Just Neil says, I would watch and cry with you through the pain that getting the idea right is. Yes, it's very hard sometimes to get that idea proper, to try and to nail it. I can't, like, a good example is if you watch me do the painting of Darth Vader pole dancing, by the time you guys saw me paint that, I'd done sketches for it and even rough paintings for it about 30 times. And I just kept repainting them. In fact, there's a painting of Emily here. It's over there. But there's a portrait of Emily that I did. And I did it over one of the rough paintings, rough sketches that I did of Darth Vader pole dancing. In fact, on the back of the board, there's actually the note that it's Darth Vader pole dancing. But it's a portrait of Emily. So, actually, I'll go show you because it's kind of funny. La 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 la. What did I do with that? Oh, duh. I'm an idiot. It's right behind me. I thought it was over there. It's actually right here. It's in frame. You guys can see it already. And so, this is a portrait I did of Emily. She's usually here helping me out with the stream, but on weekends she's actually at home. The frame, unfortunately, got damaged in the luggage. The painting itself is fine. Happy with that, but the frame got dinged in the luggage. I don't know how. I can't imagine what the hell did that. But anyways, on the back, see the note, Darth Vader pole dancing. I scratched it out. So the painting is actually called Violent Red. It was painted in July of this year by some dumbass named Lee. But yeah, this was actually painted over a rough sketch kind of thing I did of Darth Vader pole dancing. And I did a whole bunch of these where I was just practicing, trying to figure out the pose, the mannerisms, and it's Darth Vader fucking pole dancing. So I had to try and figure out a way to do it where it didn't look vulgar, because I like my job at Lucasfilm. I don't want to get fired. So, but it was such a funny concept, I had to do it. It was so much fun. Does the book ink smell nice? I don't know. I don't smell books generally. I know that when I get my books back from the printer, they're usually sealed in a box. So they come off the printing press and they sit in a box. And then when I open up the box, I get hit with, 30, 40 books, 100 books, however many are in the box. The ink hits you in the face. And, you can get briefly a little bit of a contact high from when that happens. But this is actually, this book has actually been sitting here airing out for a couple of days. So it doesn't really have any kind of odor to it. Sorry. Oh my God, smell it. It doesn't really have any odor to it. Ooh, colonies. I love the look of various colonies. I write military sci-fi, and my historical fiction I write is so much different. Oh, there you go. Colonies. So again, it's kind of interesting to see him coloring his stuff in Photoshop, because that's not something that he did originally. He would do the gouache paintings. So I love the gouache paintings. Oh, good. It's nice to see him. Oh, this is Johnny Mnemonic. That's why. So he created the Biomechanical Fish. So this is a dolphin. You can see the dolphin, and then he's got this thing over it, but from Johnny Mnemonic. And then the vehicles. I want my mind back. This movie was so horrible. Note to future directors, any director, if you're going to hire Keanu Reeves for a movie, don't make him talk. Just let him do his thing. He's a good physical actor. He's a great action actor. Don't let him talk. Don't give him a dramatic role. Just give him a gun and say, go shoot those fuckers. He'll do a great job at that. Lunar Scout Commandos, Life Under Glass. So, Lunar Base. I love moon base kind of concepts and stuff. I'm a big fan of those kind of things. Oh, wow. Okay. Mundala says, in the future, some intrepid museum curator will do an x-ray scan in the owner lane of that painting, discover the Vader drawing, and then probably write his PhD thesis on its symbology. Mikoshi, Master of the Hidden Star Wars and what it means. Is Lucasfilm in Presidio? Yes, Lucasfilm is still in the Presidio. There's still a Yoda statue there. You can, you can actually walk out. You can the lobby to Lucasfilm is open to the public, and it's kind of a mini museum of Star Wars props and movie posters. So there's actually, last time we were up there, they still had a bunch of George's Godzilla posters were up there. So the giant one sheets from the original Godzilla movies, or from some of the later Godzilla, but it's classic Godzilla movies anyways. He's got the movie posters for, and they're hanging in the office. It's kind of cool. My favorite is actually just to the right of the desk. There's this big red one. It's gorgeous. It's all in Japanese. I wish I could tell you what exactly it was from, but yeah. But yeah, the Presidio is Lucasfilm's headquarters. ILM is also located there, so Lucasfilm's on the top. Presidio is actually under it, underground. And that's where they do all the super top secret stuff. They do have tours though, so you can get a tour, but they'll just show you all the great stuff they've worked on in the past. They're not going to show you any of the stuff they're currently working on. In fact, none of the people who work there outside of the tour guides will talk to you. Wave at them. That's about all you'll get. I love this vehicle here, by the way. There it is. So that's kind of cool. Did he just take that and blow it up and gouache paint it? It looks like he did. So this essentially looks like he took this picture here, scanned it in, printed it out, and then painted over it. So looks pretty badass. I love it. So gouache painting over that. Pretty cool. Keanu Reeves as Spike in Cowboy Bebop. Yes, Keanu Reeves would have made an amazing Spike in Cowboy Bebop live action. National Geographic funded Mandala. Neil saying to Mandala, of course. Not that National Geographic's funded Mandala. Keanu Reeves and Spike he used to live in the Presidio. Weird housing. Yeah, it is kind of weird up there. I dig it though. It's a nice place. I live in San Diego though. My studio's in downtown San Diego. And I do that because I can hop on the train, or I can actually drive up when I have conventions and things like that in Northern California. I'll actually arrange all my meetings and stuff with art directors. Most of the stuff we do now is over the internet though. So Tron, the MCP. So this is actually him designing how the body hair is supposed to look, or the body hair. There's a note here on body hair, how the body armor is supposed to look for Tron. And so he's actually making a note about the various ways to break up the armor that they're wearing. And then here he is actually designing the font. So he hand drew the font before they made it. Mandala says Keanu Reeves is a little dour and sour to play Spike. And Neil says, well, Nat Geo could also fund Mandala. It would be nice as well. And I'm sure Mandala would appreciate that too. So I loved kind of the design of Tron, the first one. I always thought was kind of cool. It was obviously very simplistic. They were limited in what kind of technology they could do. Also, a lot of it was done on computers, and a lot of it was also hand-drawn. So the glows and things like that were all hand-drawn, but a lot of the animation was actually done on the computer. And what was kind of funny about that is my first art director, when I worked at Verizon, was a woman named Lori Nichols. Her maiden name was Lorraine Schweitzer. She actually was one of the artists on Tron. And when she worked at Disney, it was kind of the other animators hated the Tron animators. And this is why none of the Tron animators really went on to do much after the fact. And it's because the traditional animators kind of forced them out because they were a threat. You had these guys coming in doing CG stuff in the 80s, in the early mid 80s or whatever, and it was actually a threat to the traditional animators who were hand drawing stuff. The concept that they could hit a button and the computer would spit out a cartoon scared the crap out of them. And so it was they were pariahs. So a lot of those artists, after Tron, they were to go work on other projects, and they could not admit that they worked on Tron. The moment they admitted they worked on Tron, they got forced out of the company. So it kind of sucked to be an artist on Tron, but you were like cutting edge. So I mean, it's kind of double-edged sword, though. It's like you get to do the latest and greatest, but unfortunately, the people in charge were like, "Fuck you! You're threatening my career." Superman Post says that dude is a legend himself, huh? Syd Mead. Syd Mead is rocking amazing. I always get Syd Mead confused with John Berkeley. Berkeley is tight too. Berkeley is cool. South Park, you going to that page? LOL. Yeah. Cartman. Grand Odyssey. So I have no clue what this one was. His involvement in Grand Odyssey started at the Tech Expo in 2003, designed with a theme attract. Oh, look like he designed a park or amusement park or something. Spacesuit as a member of the crew was a groundbreaking experience at the time, in which the visitors stood in line for hours, sometimes returning for seconds. Okay, so yeah, he was doing an amusement park ride design. So Mission Impossible 3. So, oh look, it's his face. So this is the case that they carried Homeboy's face in. Kind of neat. You can kind of see all the different revisions that the case went under. Mission to Mars. Okay, Mission to Mars. Another one of those movies that's kind of crappy, but again, visually cool. So I loved the crawler design. And this, I love the wheel design here because you can't have big honking rubber tires on Mars. It just doesn't work. They're too expensive to ship out there. So you got to have something that you can actually send out there that's super thin but can be inflated to do its job like a real tire. And so that's kind of what they did there. Short Circuit.
Number 5 is alive, Stephanie.
So I loved this movie as a kid. So I've never seen this page, so I'm going to study this for a minute. So in the story of Short Circuit, 1986, a prototype military robot is transformed and given human insight by an electrical storm. The project demanded an empathic approach to design, which Mead suggested by mixing metaphors of engineering principles to create a hapless yet emotionally appealing survivor. By departing from the formulaic robot vocabulary, Mead's design featured an asymmetrical approach, enormous clumsy tracks and a wobbly, uncertain head, which was repurposed from Douglas Trumbull's special effects shops. The film's director, John Badham, envisioned the amiable robot known as Number 5 folded into a garbage can. This further complicated the design process, but resulted ultimately in a gangly torso, which, according to director Mandate, did not look as though an actor was hiding within. Festooned with sensors and requiring several duplicates capable of different tasks, the completed Number 5 was to be the film's star and the most expensive single element in production, which it was. But it's kind of cool. You can see the various. So I loved this design, though. I thought it was kind of cool. You can see the different head designs and stuff. And then in the end, they just ended up stealing the head off something else. A Sound of Thunder. So this was kind of cool. Schizoid. This one I have no clue about. So this outer space film was to feature a SWAT-like team. Okay, so this was one of those movies that was in production and just died. But you can see some amazing design work, though. Again, Syd Mead, fucking rocking. There's also a really great British guy who I think Berkeley, Mead, and McCrory were influenced by. I forgot his name, though. No clue. Well, I was just talking about Doug Chiang, who is actually a Chinese dude, I think. Yamato 2520, Masters of Anime. This one's for you, Morniel. This is Syd Mead designing the Yamato. That looks pretty cool, though. And, even as a purist, like really liking the original Battleship Yamato, this looks pretty cool. I love that conning tower there. That looks great. Lots of lasers. Borneo Moonlit, just orgasm. That's kind of cool. I love this galactic kind of the view of something exploding and then like the various planets kind of getting hit with the shockwave. Blade Runner 2049. So here we go. Movie coming out soon. Okay, so Syd Mead's work on Blade Runner 2049, 2017, features his iconic take on the city in the form of two hotels. the Neo Quiche Hotel, Kitsch, whatever. Below is the grand facade look of the classic era grand hotels. The mechanical fixtures are perhaps AC ductworks, part of the buildings that have failed as ambient temperatures rose. A huge fountain in the front of the hotel is filled with blown-in sand. The two-story penthouses are located at the top outside corner of the main building, while the top penthouse has open to the sky terraces with retractable shade. The bottom also has one open terrace, but not open to the sky, just a view. So it's kind of, you can see the overtaken by, the dystopian future. It's kind of the hotel is kind of half buried in the sand. So this neo-modern hotel, shown below, drawing shows a sleek vertical tower with penthouses, terraces at the top 2 floors. The marquee is actually under the conical part of the tower, the extension. So let's see, conical part of the tower. I think that's actually the marquee right there. Kind of neat. That was it. So, anyways, there you go. Page by page, fucking amazing book. I love this book. Look, it's Johnny 5.
Number 5 is Alive, Stephanie.
Sorry, I loved that movie as a kid. That robot was so fucking awesome. But I loved the way it moved. I loved the way it worked, and I had no clue Syd Mead designed it until about 20 minutes ago. So, anyways, Chris Floss, the guy is the British version of Mead and Berkeley. Awesome. And Murneo says, haha. Sweet. So anyways, there you go, guys. Syd Mead, as promised. I wanted to show you guys that book. Again, if anybody's interested in the book, the link is in my... I'm actually starting to put links for some of the books that I have, because everybody keeps asking me about my book collection. So I will start putting them when I remember in the description of my channel. Also, just to let you know, full disclosure, I have an Amazon affiliate account, so if you click on that and you buy something, it helps fund the stream. So we were talking